You are now listening to a podcast made in collaboration with the Copenhagen College Radio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 32 of the Social Media and Politics podcast, bringing you expert insights into how social media is changing the political game. I'm your host, Michael Bacetta, political scientist at the University of Copenhagen. Follow us on Twitter for more news about social media and politics, and check out our Facebook page, Social Media and Politics Podcast. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. This episode is going to be a little bit different from our previous episodes, and we're going to be talking about radicalization and foreign fighters. So those fighters that leave their home countries to go and fight for ISIS in Syria and Iraq. But we're going to take a little bit of a different angle than we've taken in the past. So we're actually going to hear the story of a mother whose son was radicalized and left to Syria and tragically died in an airstrike. And that mother, who is Karolina, found out about her son's death through a Facebook group of Islamic extremists. So just to foreground the context a little bit, I did a little bit of digging and found in a press release from April 2017, Army Lieutenant General Michael Nagata. He is the director of, and this is a long one, the National Counterterrorism Center's Directorate for Strategic Operational Planning. According to them, there have been over 40,000 foreign fighters from over 120 different countries that have left their home countries to fight for ISIS in Syria and Iraq. Moreover, Lieutenant General Nagata stated that the situation is, quote, probably the most ethnically diverse, sociologically diverse, non-monolithic foreign fighter problem we have seen so far, unquote. So of these 40,000 foreign fighters, about 4,000 or 10% are believed to come from the EU, and of those, 150 have come from Denmark. Joining me today here in studio at the Copenhagen College Radio is Karolina. Karolina's son, Lukas, is one of the Danes who traveled to Syria and joined ISIS, and tragically is believed to have lost his life in a coalition airstrike in Syria. Today we're going to hear Karolina's story, discuss the role of social media in it, and share some of the work Karolina has been doing through her NGO, Sons and Daughters of the World. Sons and Daughters of the World is an NGO aimed at pressuring politicians and authorities to increase public awareness about de-radicalization programs. To find out more about the project, you can visit www.sonsanddaughtersoftheworld.com. Karolina, welcome to the Social Media and Politics podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we met at a seminar that was put on by the European Commission's Radical Awareness Network. It was part of what's called the Civil Society Empowerment Program. And you were there on behalf of your organization, Sons and Daughters of the World.
Yep.
Can you go a little bit into what that organization is all about?
Well, Sons and Daughters of the World, I created this as a space for parents, for the ones that are left behind, siblings, uncles, whatnot, to create awareness, to show videos of parents that have been going through these things, these issues, and to try and create a platform where it's okay to talk about these topics. In the beginning, I was anonymous, so I needed a cover. But now I just post through my name. Mm-hmm. But it's Sons and Daughters of the World is a lot of different things. I think I use about 80% of my time on damage control, and that means literally when these kids have gone to Syria and Iraq, I set up bounties down by the border. The border is pretty long, so I can't cover everything, but I've got contacts in several places. And money is a lot. Money is a lot of things in Syria and Iraq. And you can go very far with a bounty. So we could get information towards the parents. And typically it works like a parent contacts us, gives us information. We share this information with my contacts. And then they go through social media. We get their kunya, their cover name that they use, so we can track them down. And up until now, we haven't been able yet. We've got a couple of cases that we can't track them, but we have tracked them at a point. Mm-hmm. And then they either use other names or they go undercover or they die. And one of these things is very important as well, that we have to establish the contact with the parents. and get this information, because a lot of parents out there, they don't even know that their kids have died. And they need someone to help them, give them this closure. They need someone maybe to look at photos. It's pretty horrific, but it's a necessity. We have to have someone to help these families because they are all alone. There's no jurisdiction in Syria from Denmark. No one in Denmark can do anything once they cross the border. So we need to work with people that can provide some information to help these parents try and persuade these kids to come home. There's also the other aspect on some parents may be obviously scared. They maybe have been threatened. Their kids might... There's a whole procedure with this process of being radicalized. And there comes a point when these kids have to detach themselves from the family structure and from the family traditions and the family as such.
And is this part of that name change you were talking about?
Well, not only that, but for a recruiter to say he's successful, that they have got crossed over, been brainwashed, have their mission, are determined, and go through with things, they have to make sure that these kids won't go back. And there's a lot of things connected with that. There are threats as well. And it will be easier for the kids to just block their parents. So we work with families as well on how to talk with these kids to avoid the blockage. It could be a parent finding out that her son wants to get married. This is one of the things that some of them are promised, that they will get a wife and they would live in the caliphate. And I would say for a particular mother that went through this story, these issues about her son, she was pretty upset because then they will have kids, and she was afraid that when he died, she knew that he was going to die. So it was only a question of when he died. There would be a grandson or a granddaughter somewhere that she couldn't help, that she couldn't connect with. And so she was very against him getting married. And he threw a fit, obviously, and he didn't really want anything to do with her. So he tried to stop the connection as well. We need to change this way of thinking. So I worked a lot with this one. We'll try and ask him questions about, okay, what kind of a wife would you want? What qualities would you want in a wife? How many kids do you want? Should she be great to, cook and stuff? Basic stuff. But that gives a window to open a conversation with him. Because we have to remember, when these kids have gone, they kind of, if they die, they end up dying twice. The first time because they're gone and it's kind of beyond the point. And the second time when they actually die. But we have to make sure that these parents get a chance to connect with them and talk with them and ask them everything, because at the end of the day, if they die, when they die, they can't ask them anything else.
Mm. And so, it sounds very front line in terms of, going down there. What type of counter extremism or de-radicalization programs exist currently in Denmark?
Well, this thing about de-radicalization programs, this is a huge issue. I'm very sad to say that there are a lot of people that are trying to do something good, and they set up a lot of things. They mentor, they do a number of things, but at the end of the day, some things will work and some things won't. There's not just one thing you can do, one size fits all, unfortunately. So there are a lot of kids that lose in this game as well. I would really like if we had one national unit that covered the whole thing, that we could work together with each other on giving the best successful support for both families and the person involved. But we have a couple of things. Well, it depends on some of these programs are built for ex-criminals. Some of these programs are built for a lot of social stuff. There's a lot of things to get involved with. You know, we've got the Aarhus model. It's pretty. How do you say? It's pretty perfect.
Which Aarhus, by the way, is a city in Denmark for our American listeners.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of worldwide as well known because they use a soft approach, and this is something that we can't not acknowledge. We have to make sure that there is a way into these kids, and if we just throw them in jail and chuck the key away, that won't be helping anyone. They would still be radicalized. They would still be able to radicalize others. They could still do a lot of damage for themselves and others as well. We have to make sure that these programs are unique, built for each individual in such a way that there's no way of them to, to run off. Mm-hmm. And we have to realize as well, these recruiters will do anything to uphold this recruitment, to uphold their mission, and they will be teaching these kids everything. These kids are calling their recruiters, 24/7. They are, or their recruiters are calling them 24/7. They are so much under watch. And if you have a de-radicalization program, in a unit where everyone's off work at 3 or 4, these kids are not radicalized at 3:05. They're still radicalized. They still need work.
Mm-hmm. And you talked a little bit about using, whether it's online or social media, in terms of your organization. Can you go into a little bit of that? What platforms you're using and how are you using them?
Social media is a very strong issue regarding trying to get a hold of these kids, triggering them in some way. They use it themselves. Twitter, Facebook, groups, Instagram, they're on a lot of different things, several different ways to contact each other. Example, I used Viper with my son when we were in contact, not Skype, but mostly Viper. And I talked with one of his brothers, and whenever they talked, one of them was on WhatsApp and the other one was on Viber, to create a distance between their conversations, so it was less detectable. But they have several accounts, several places where they shift around them. Sometimes all the brothers use some of the same Facebook profiles. They share it within themselves, and usually they have a testament written on their phone or as a speak voice that tells the person that is, if they die, that this and this can have their phone, or that they want this one to call their mother and tell them that they have died, and stuff like that. And in fact, I think it was about a month after, a little under, 3 weeks or something, after my son was alleged killed, his Viper became open again. Mm-hmm. It was, on Viper, there's a message at the top that says last seen on this and this date, or online, and all of a sudden it was online again, and that was bloody freaking me out, because he was dead, but then this one was going alive. Mm-hmm. And this was actually one of the other fighters that had inherited his phone and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Because these phones are used, as I understand it, as reward systems. Like you get more phone time if you do this or that thing. So,
well, they've got a lot of waiting as well. Usually they're on the phone all the time, or cafes or whatnot, internet cafes. But when they're when they're waiting, that they haven't got much to do. Phones, of course, they've got each other. They will be singing. They will do whatever. They will rest because they don't know when they're going to rest again next time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, let's jump a little bit into I want to return to the idea of Viber in a second, because that save message feature is, I think, something quite important. But can you give us an introduction to your son, Lukas? What was he like growing up?
He was he was a Jedi Knight. Both my boys are Jedi boys. I am a Star Wars freak, and of course I have raised my boys the best Obi-Wan way. Lukas especially, he loved, well, they both did, all their superheroes. And I did a lot of themes, for birthdays. The cake was a 007 or a Spider-Man or Obi-Wan Kenobi or anything. I sewed them costumes as well. They loved it. He was very much into the whole Superman, the superhero effect. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I have, used for myself after he died, because he wanted to save the world. And regardless of what ISIS is, regardless of what a lot of these groups are in Syria and Iraq, these young kids, well, especially my son, when I'm thinking of my son, they have a pure heart. They have a clean heart. They have a sense of a mission. The possibility of saving the world is pretty big. They see destruction everywhere. They see killings. They see fightings. They see world crisis all over the place. And here they have they're actually given a position in life where they can change something. They want to build a caliphate. They want to build a new world where none of these things will exist. Mm-hmm. And I have to think, because this is where I come from, I think that we all raise our kids to help each other. We all raise our kids to give each other and make sure that we're all okay. And for him to stop his own life, what he was doing, to move to another country to help his brothers and sisters, that is pretty beautiful. It is. And I don't care if people think I'm crazy. I don't care. I think it's a beautiful thought that they want to change the world. They want to make the world a better place. That is something that I wanted to do when I was 15, 16. Mm-hmm. Shit, I really did.
Yeah, and I think it's important. This is a podcast, so most people are listening. But, as I remember, you're from New Zealand, correct?
Yeah,
so you don't, or do you have any roots in the Middle East or any connections to the Middle East from?
No. My father's from Tonga. One of his brothers is Muslim, or a couple of them are Muslim. But other than that, no, I don't.
And the reason I ask is because was he brought up Danish?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, because as being an immigrant in Denmark myself, I noticed that it can be, there's definitely a divide between the home country and not. So I was wondering if maybe a kind of immigrant background may have had him felt excluded as a child, for instance.
No. The thing that is actually a pinpointer here is that he had autism, Asperger's syndrome, and ADD. He was constantly fighting within himself to get people to understand him or to just be understood like the boy he was. Mm-hmm. And that, for anyone, is a huge struggle. Mm-hmm.
And so where did the exposure to Islam or getting in touch with a recruiter, how did that process unfold?
I think it goes before that, because I had the kids with me in New Zealand in 2004. How old would he be? Around, I don't know, 8 or something. And my father's wife, she was Christian. And she would pray, before dinner, thank you, Lord, for the food we receive, blah, blah, blah. And Lukas was very interested in this, very. So while we were there, he wanted us to pray. And she, obviously being a Christian, she would like him to, learn some prayers and stuff.
And also, I think it's important to remember, coming from a very secular Danish society.
Yeah, yeah. And this was something that he was interested in. We went to church a couple of times on Sunday while we were down there. He was very interested in the whole Jesus God thing and wanted to know more. And when we came home, he, every once in a while wanted to, say grace. But it wore off. And while he was struggling school-wise, I was trying to find a school that could deal with his issues, being autistic and having ADD. And he went through a couple of schools because, politically, there's not enough backup for these kids, these special needs kids. There's not enough, rooms in the classroom. There's no other places, so he was on a lot of waiting lists, but he had different schools. And for the majority of these schools and classes, there were a lot of Muslim families connected as well. So he had a lot of Muslim friends. When I say friends, they're not friends, from childhood to adult. He shifted a lot between his friends. Obviously, changing school a number of times aren't helping the situation of keeping a friend, but he made new friends pretty easily. And once he was willing to go on a play date. I say play date, it wasn't really a play date. It was just coming home with this kid for a couple of hours and hang out. He was around 12, I think. And he was Muslim, and I came over to pick him up, and he's a very, very good boy. And the mother said she was just so astonished that his behavior was so, well behaved, that he had good manners, and he would take his plate to the dishwasher. He would, do these things. But that's what we do at home. And then she asked me, well, how much pocket money are you giving him? Do you give him pocket money? I says, no, I don't give him pocket money.
For doing chores or?
Yeah. Well, how do you, well, we talk about it. If he needs a new game or something, then we talk about it. And if he's got a birthday coming up, he gets it there, or he might be helping with something else and he gets it, or whatever. But there's nothing scheduled as of pocket money every week, allowance something. Well, she's asking again, well, do you not have trouble when you're out shopping? Says, no, there's no problems. Because her son demanded everything, everything he pointed on. Says, well, why do you let him? So we had a talk about, and this is a quite big difference between the way I live my life with my kids and the way that she lived her life and her family with their kids. But when we got home, I noticed that he was he had a kind of a proud sense around him because he was praised so much of that mother. And that made me feel really, really good that he grew a bit. Do you know what I mean? He didn't see himself as that. At that time, he had been in different schools. New people that he met, they would not really understand him. And for someone to understand him in a short play date area thing, that was totally new for him. And that was a really good experience for him.
And did that have some sort of, is it that this one instance where making a childhood friend with someone from a different background in an Islamic family or having a Muslim tradition, is that what you think might have sparked his interest? Or was it that he met a larger group of people through that friend? Or how did his penchant for Islam come about?
I think compared to his awareness for what's going on, or questioning, a religion as such, with the Christianity. These kids were Muslim kids. He learned more and more about it. It wasn't until he had what's it called? Praktikplaats.
Internship. Apprenticeship.
From his school, he was around, 14 or something. Yeah. He had an internship at a car shop, where the mechanics are and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they were all Muslim. And this was the turning point for him, definitely. Up until then, Lukas was a kid that was a bit shy, but could do a lot of, he had a number of great ideas for making trouble. Mm-hmm. But he didn't understand the social rules. He had a hard time trying to find out what people meant and stuff, not wanting to get dirty or anything. So when he came home and said that he wanted this apprenticeship with his mentor, I thought, that's not going to work, because these mechanics, they're all dirty and stuff. That's not going to work. But obviously, I kept my mouth shut. And he came home the first day with the biggest smile from ear to ear. He was black on his hands, on his face, on his chest. But he was really, really happy. Mm-hmm. He had actually found something for the first time in his life that he felt that he fit in. And that was so astonishing, really, to see for me as a mother, that finally something kicked in, something got his attention, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of a natural feeling for maybe someone with their first job, feeling like they're earning money.
Yeah.
But what about this? You mentioned a mentor, or?
Well, this was, I think this was his third mentor. The first mentor he had, he died. He was actually killed by another kid that he was taking care of. Yeah. This was the turning point for Lukas when everything went worse.
So are these mentors assigned kind of practitioners to take care of children with autism or something?
Yeah, or problems with social activities or whatnot. And typically he met up with his mentor, and then they went out for something to eat together, or they tried to do an activity together. But and he was with him for about 2 years or something, and he died. This was very dramatic. He was knifed. And he died right there. And that was pretty hard for Lukas. And then he got another mentor that really didn't work out, and then another mentor that really didn't work out. And it was kind of, in a way, too hard for him. Mm-hmm. He struggled hugely after he died. He really did.
And so is it that this new mentor that got him this position was a recruiter? Is that?
No.
Okay.
No. This guy was brought in and had Lukas. During this time, when his mentor died, Lukas went through a whole lot of different things. He went more inside of himself. He couldn't take the bus alone. He would get scared. He would call me up from work. He had to rush off a bus because there were some kids that he was afraid of. And Lukas couldn't think, getting out of a bus because I'm scared. I have to watch out that the car's coming. Have to take care. He couldn't think of all that. He just ran off. Mm-hmm. So he calls me. I'm at work. I find another route he can take, another bus or a train where he had to go, blah, blah, blah. And that came to the point where he couldn't actually go on buses anymore or trains by himself. He was so scared. So this mentor followed him to school sometimes as well. And there was some petty crime going on as well. He was acting out. And this was kind of not a Jekyll Hyde thing, but on one hand, he was very very vulnerable, very. And on the second hand, when he was with some of his mates, they would do stupid stuff. Ride a stolen bike or whatnot. They would just do stupid stuff. But after this, he had another mentor and several different schools as well, because they had to change, one of the schools had to change the address, move to a bigger place. He was getting older. He needed to go on a different line. There was a lot of changes, too much changes for him.
So he was having some internal struggles.
Yeah. And when he came to this car shop, everything just fell into place. There was one particular Muslim guy that was very, well, he was extreme. You know, you had to eat in a different way. You had to pray 5 times a day, but you have to do this and that and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. There's good Muslims, there's bad Muslims. And he created a space and worked within the space to make Lukas not, Muslims were divided, let's say it like that. He didn't believe that the other Muslims were right Muslims. He would question them. Think of a non-Muslim or a convert being questioned by another, or question another Muslim that's been brought up with Islam his whole life. It was just, yeah.
And there was a point when Lukas had been working at this car shop where sort of in your home, you started to have these discussions. As you were saying, this certain guy would kind of impress his values on others in the car shop. Lukas started to do that at home, right? And that's how you came to feel about, or became to know that he was ascribing to an Islamic religion. Well,
not really. It was the summer. It was during Ramadan. I have got Muslim friends. I know when Ramadan's on, but they definitely not thought my son was going on Ramadan. But I remember it was kind of hot, and I had just baked some buns. And he was in his room. He wasn't active or anything. He was just, lying there. Yeah. He was kind of teenage bitchy in a way. Yeah. It was, and when he said no to, new baked buns, there's something wrong. No teenager will say no to fresh bread.
Not in Denmark, anyway.
Yeah. So I just asked him, "Are you on a Ramadan?" And he said yes. And then everything fell into place. And then everything started with changes around the house. He became more and more intense, more and more extreme. And at the time, we didn't know anything about radicalization. Everything was about Lukas being extreme Muslim because he was autistic. And because he needed this structure. It has to be 5 times a day you pray, not 3.5, not 4. It says 5 in the Quran. You have to do it 5 times. And then at the same time, getting all this help from the other Muslim at the car shop, pressuring him as well. There was a lot of discussions. He wanted new countertops, a whole new kitchen, new fridge, stove and stuff. And I wouldn't have it.
Because it had been touched with non-halal or unclean?
Yeah. Okay. And I'm trying to maintain a household with non-Muslims and a Muslim all of a sudden, and it is my strongly belief, it still is, it always will be, that we can live in the same family, Muslims and non-Muslims. It's all about love. It's all about respecting each other and giving space to each other. So, of course, there's room for us all. But with Lukas being extreme and very, very determined, if little brother was eating pork, then he wouldn't, be around him.
Which is huge in Danish cuisine, by the way. Pork is a staple.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure that he was aware, Lukas was aware that I was making sausage for his little brother. example, because he's not going to determine how we live our lives. I'm very up for a discussion about it. We'll talk about things and stuff, but it's about making space for everyone as well. So his little brother has just as much right to be there as anyone. And he went on hunger strike for a couple of months.
Within the house?
Yeah. He would only eat canned food. This has to do with, just imagine you opening the fridge. There's soft cheese, yeah, but it's opened. You don't know actually if someone has been using the knife for liver paste or anything other with pork in it before using this. So he wouldn't use it. He would only open something that had never been opened before. So only if it was new. Everything was looked on. It has to be, without this type. It has to be a specific type of cheese. Everything had to be halal. And if it wasn't, he wouldn't touch it. But that was fine for me because everyone else wanted to eat that stuff. So that's okay, just as long as he got fed as well. He would eat canned tuna as well because no one else had opened it. And I couldn't keep up with that. I really couldn't. I couldn't bear my son not having to, doing his own shopping and stuff. I couldn't do it. This was huge. We talked a lot about this. At the end, we found our common way. I went out and bought one pan, not all different pans or a new stove or something. We agreed on, one pan. And this was his pan. So only chicken and vegetables and fish and stuff on that pan. We came to the point at Christmas. I always had, after he came out as a Muslim, I did eat for him. And he didn't want any Christmas gifts, so he got it for his eat. And he got, he did get a little Christmas present, but that was just something that I had to do.
Stocking stuffer.
Yeah. For Christmas dinner, the youngest one, he wanted a pork roast. And of course he's going to get a pork roast, and Lukas wanted turkey. So at the end, I just put the turkey in first, and I talked it with my son. Okay, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. How do you want us to prepare this? And I wanted him in the kitchen as well. So the turkey was done first. And it would just sit and wait on that countertop. Well, I had a specific way of making food. Everything that was, if we were doing pork, it would be on that countertop and everything else on this countertop. So he knew things were divided. And that way, he came into the whole food thing in a whole different way because everything was visible. Everything, he knew what I did. He knew up front that I would never contaminate anything, whatnot. But it's a learning process. You do not get all these things from day one. You do not know how to work it out.
And so in the end, was it that you guys had reached a kind of compromise? Did that seem to quell the situation? Because we're getting to the point where Lukas basically just left abruptly to Turkey. So was it that it didn't get aggravatingly worse? And
No, it was bloody good. Sorry, the language, but it was to finally be able to eat a dinner without having there's something else. Plates. He was very disturbed that things weren't washed properly, and he would use a lot of energy and my energy on whenever we were having dinner to talk about the plates are dirty. So this was at the point where he had moved, where he had left from home. He had his own apartment that he got through the municipality and had a mentor as well. And he... around the plate issue, I just pulled him aside and says, listen, honey, whenever you're here, whenever we're going to eat, the first thing you do is take your plate and your knife and your fork and you wash it. and then that's ready for you. Then we don't have to discuss anything. We don't have to, who didn't do the dishes properly or whatnot. Everything's in place. And by doing that, everything just changed. Mm-hmm. And we ate a lot of fish. We were all cooking together, and it was good. This was you can't compare this with eating tuna from a can. You can't. Mm-hmm. This was our normal day now, that we work together with food. And of course, I would never at the dining room table sit one child eating pork in front of Lukas. We didn't do that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't shove it under his nose. Right. Never, ever. Mm-hmm. That's respect.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very tolerant. And so Lukas he's living on his own at this point. You've kind of figured out the eating issues. You're respecting of his decision. He's respecting of your accommodation. So then what happens when he actually decides to go?
At this point, his behavior changed. He was going to the better. He was very at ease with himself. I said to him when he lived by himself, I says, you have to come home once a week to eat and once a week to sleep over. If you combine them, that's fine, but you have to do this.
And he's how old at this point?
He's 17. Yeah. And he can come often. There's no restricting, but he has to meet up every week because I want a family dinner. Mm-hmm. That's just what I want. And he was very helpful. He's always been helpful, but more at the end. If he came in and he saw rubbish on the floor, a rubbish bin ready to go outside, he would just go outside with it. The other kid I've got, this, the rubbish can pile up from bottom to roof. He wouldn't see it. He would trip over it, but he wouldn't react at all. But Lukas...
I'm sure Mom can identify with that one. If you're listening, Mom.
Yeah.
So you're having these weekly dinners.
Oh, yeah, but his behavior was, he was more adult. He was more, had more and more on his shoulders. He had more respect, empathy. We had a lot of great talks about Islam. He wanted me to convert. I didn't want to convert, of course, because that's not for me. Mm-hmm. And I have made that, obvious from the beginning that I would never convert because it's everything that I don't believe in. I don't believe that I have to have a God to tell me what's right and wrong. I know what's right and wrong. And I know that my purpose in life is to make sure that I live a fulfilled life, that I am a good person towards my fellow people and do right and do good things. That makes me happy. And I think this is my true mantra of life. But we did have some heated discussions. Well, not heated. He started crying. He just broke down because I wouldn't come with him to Jannah, to paradise.
So he expressed that he wanted to go and he wanted you to come with him.
Yeah. Mum, aren't you interested in wondering what's going to happen after you die? He says, no, I'm interested in living my life as it is right now, in doing what I want to do for you and your brother and for us as a family and for me as a human being. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in what's going to happen if I cross the road. I'll just take it as it comes. Well, then it'll be too late, Mum. Okay, so be it. Mm-hmm. Well, don't you want to meet up with me in Jannah? Don't you want us to be together in paradise? It says, I'm sorry, but I just don't believe it. And he broke down, bawled his tears, Mm-hmm. And we had some other discussions about other issues, homosexuals and stuff. And I think these are the things that parents to converts need to understand and realize that they have to ask their kids. Do not waste time. Please ask the right hard questions. Make sure that these kids have an understanding of democracy, have an understanding that, some politicians are, shit, but some of them are not, and they will do a lot to help us. And democracy goes both ways. You can use democracy to force your issues to surface.
And so what was, just to get a little more context here, what was Lukas doing at this point when he's 17? Was he in high school?
No, he was, the municipality wanted him obviously to have a job or to get an education. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have to give back to the communities. That's the way it is. And the wheels have to keep going. And we all have to contribute to this. But he wouldn't work because if we say he had to work in a shop, he couldn't. They would be selling alcohol and smokes, and
so it all related to this
Yeah.
to this ideology. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about, do you know, in terms of like, this was in 2000, say 13, 12,
Yeah.
something along those
Yeah.
lines. So social media is pretty popular. Were you guys connected on Facebook? Do you know if he was active? Was that something he was against?
Yeah,
or?
he was on Facebook, and I didn't check my kids on Facebook. We talked about Facebook. We talked about, you have to have your privacy as well. Don't share too much, blah, blah, blah. But I was friends with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
But at a point, he unfriended me, and so be it. I'm still friends with my younger son on Facebook, but I don't mingle in his. I don't tag him. I don't make it embarrassing for him if his friends, I respect certain boundaries. We talk about things instead.
Mm-hmm.
But for Lukas, he wasn't that active, I would say. His recruitment didn't happen through social media. It happened from the beginning with this guy at the shop, car shop, and then it followed up from face to face, from street dawa or from things we talk together, not from social media.
Okay, so so Lukas he's talking about going to.
No, he's actually saying. He's actually saying, Mum, I can't live in Denmark, and especially not in the summers. And I says, look, what do you mean? Of course you're going to live here. You live here, færdig. That's what we do. You live here. Because I knew he was fishing that he was going to live in another country, and I didn't want it. And I says, well, what do you mean about the summer? Yeah, because all the girls are naked. They're walking the streets naked. They're not naked, Lukas. Listen, you need to turn to your God. You need to talk with Allah then. It's up to you not to look at them. If you see something that you don't like, look away. If you are in a situation where you can't get out of it or whatever, find your God. Take your beads, say a prayer, go down to the mosque, do whatever you need to. You can't just say, well, I can't be here anymore. I can't live in this country. His father has a company where there is a female on the logo. He couldn't sit in that car anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And still, I have to say again, we didn't know radicalization existed. He was extreme Muslim because he was autistic.
Mm-hmm.
But when that's said, I don't think it's very appropriate. All sorts of extremism isn't good for you. So I pull the reins every time I think and try and help him to not be so extreme or to not be so strict about a certain way or a certain saying or something like that. I had to interpret it so that, you can live a normal life.
Mm-hmm.
So when he talked about Syria, his brothers and sisters, at that time, listen, honey, they're not your brothers and sisters. Your brother is here. Your mother is here. Your life is here. I think it's a great thing that you want to help. I really do. I knit, socks for homeless kids, homeless people every winter. We've given them together. These kids know where we come from. But to interrupt your life, to go in a war country, I wouldn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran off. It came to the point that he ran off. He was cornered at a meeting the week before at the municipality. They said, okay, education or a job or you're out.
Of the program.
Yeah. And this is the way it works, of course.
And was this attached to some sort of financial backing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But he had obviously made up his mind before that. He emptied his apartment. I found out, a month after. And he ran off. He called me from a payphone, a Turkish number, a foreign number. A couple of days later, I couldn't get a hold of him after this meeting. I had talked with the mentor that was with him at the meeting that said that she cornered him, that she didn't understand at all where he was coming from. And this is another thing that I work as well with sons and daughters. I want people to understand where these kids are, because you will not get a way into these kids' mind unless you understand their world, unless you understand where they're coming from. Let's say you have someone that is going to the job center. Yeah? He's got an appointment. So he gets contacted by his caseworker. She's female. She sends him a line, please come in, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't show up. So 3 weeks go by. This is normal procedure. 3 weeks go by. She sends another. He doesn't come. He still doesn't come. So they drop the case or whatnot. If we understood that she knew him, that she potentially thought that he might have been radicalized or he was a bit extreme in his points of view and stuff, they should probably have set a man on the case, maybe. Invited him in. He would come in. Then the man would say, okay, we've got an opening here at Foodtex, a grocery store. He says, no, can't do that. So the male caseworker says, well, you don't want to work then. If we understand that it's not because he doesn't want to work, but it is hard for this guy to explain why he can't work there without being judged, without being, cross-examined by a lot of things. But if we said, okay, there is an opening here, a cinema, working behind the scenes or whatnot, or a car shop, something, whatever. Something that's not involved with the sale of smokes or booze or women, or that is nothing to do with non-halal food, or... Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The whole issue of getting through to these kids is a whole different picture.
Mm-hmm. They see it differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. We have Lukas is in Turkey. He's calling you from a Turkish payphone. Do you contact the authorities? What's the next step there?
Well, yeah, of course I contact the authorities. Which down the line, the caseworker, after I think it was 2 months, she said, well, if he's not, because they have that apartment, she was pressuring on, we need to know when he's coming back, because we can't keep this apartment, forever. And that's, of course, that's valid. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. And I tried to pressure Lukas from Syria as well about his apartment. The mentor contacted him as well. He didn't know when he was going to come back. He couldn't answer me that. He had to help these brothers and sisters in the camps and whatnot. So eventually they were going to close down the apartment. So this was about 2 months after. Me and the mentor were going to go out and empty his apartment. Clean out his stuff. But the mentor called me and said, the apartment is empty. Mm-hmm. So he had actually emptied it before, or he had given the keys to someone else to take all the furniture. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at this point, as I was reading in some press about this case, that you didn't know that Lukas was actually in the fight, right? He was telling you something different.
Well, yeah. Up until now, we still don't know how much fighting he actually did. The first 4 months, he was with various groups up until late September. Then he went off the grid. I couldn't get a hold of him or anything. We had contacted PET, the Danish service as well. We couldn't get a hold of him. A week went by, nearly 14 days, and then he surfaced again on another phone. This was the time he went over with ISIS. Mm-hmm. He didn't say that. I asked him obviously where he was. Well, the connections and new phone and whatnot. He was still in camps, but he didn't say where. But I still thought he was in Turkey, the border to Syria.
Working at some sort of like humanitarian relief aid.
Yeah,
Type of...
and he had been doing that up until these 4 months. If you're going to Syria to be with ISIS, you do not work in aid camps for 4 months. You don't. You try and cross directly through because you need training. You need to go to the training camps. So from September until November, he was working with the generators, with water, with stocking food. And Jacob, the reporter from Politiken, he found out through one of his contacts that he had been in minor combat, but it was a rebat. That is a post where you watch out. Yeah. So, and the day he died, he was in rebat as well. And the thing is, if that post was compromised or anything, then he would have to go in front line. So if he didn't die then, he would have died soon after. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he was.
It was leading towards him going to combat. And the thing is, one of these guys, his friend that I've talked with afterwards, he was supposed to have Lukas's spot, but Lukas was waiting for his wife to come from America. And he went off to collect her at the border, but she wasn't there. He went back, he changed the work and did his friend's rebat because his friend, the one I talked with afterwards, he was sick or something. So, yeah, but if he didn't die then, he would have died later. There was no coming back from that. I know that now. But all these things, everything that has been going on with Lukas in Syria, the real story, I find out after he died. And I didn't know he was in Syria.
And this is the
Facebook
the tough part,
group.
which is where the social media part comes in.
Yeah,
and it's kind of it's harrowing, I think.
It is. But, you know, when I found this post, I went through a lot of things, obviously, but afterwards...
Maybe we can just foreground the listeners a bit into what exactly we're talking about here.
Well, I found out that there was a Facebook group that had a picture of my son. Yeah.
This is while you're talking to him on Viper about where he is in the Turkish border, as far as you know, right?
Yeah. But when I got this picture, he had died. Yeah. He died on Friday. I got this picture Sunday night. I received the message that he was wounded Sunday night. I wanted the link to the group page. I got the link. I was approved to come inside the group at 1:22 Monday midday. And I found this specific picture. It was a picture of my son leaning up a wall. It was a resting area. There was a black and white flag at the end. It's online everywhere.
The ISIS flag.
Yeah. This is the first time I noticed the black and white flag as ISIS flag. I didn't know ISIS had that flag. This was a group, an ISIS supporters group or Nusra supporters group, a lot of different groups that came together in this big group.
Yeah, and
then that divided afterwards.
And this group is on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it took you a day or so to be approved.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
They knew I was coming.
But otherwise, do you think it had some sort of filtering?
I think they do filter, but they obviously filter much more now because there have been a lot of policemen in the group as well. There's been a lot of NGOs in the group as well. A lot of other people watching, taking care of.
And I saw a screenshot online from this group, and it's in Danish. So this is a Danish-oriented group. What was the group about, or what was going on in the group?
A lot of different things going on in the group. In the right Muslim way, you have what's påminnelse called?
My Danish isn't that good, unfortunately.
Every day you get a text saying, do the right thing. Remember, if you pray 5 times a day, you get closer to Allah, or,
Like a reminder or a quote of the day type.
Yeah, quote of the day something. So there was a lot of quote of the days, to be a better Muslim. There were some videos of, there were body parts. I saw a martyr video. Usually in the earlier days, if you can say that, they did a martyr video. So they, had pictures of this guy that had been killed. He was a martyr. Various pictures of his life, a little story maybe about what he did for others and how he died, and blessings and all this kind of thing. But they don't do that anymore. They really get the chance to do it because obviously there are a lot of deaths and
would they only profile Danish foreign fighters?
No.
Okay.
It was a larger, but mostly connection with Danish, yeah. Mm-hmm. But if there was a big shot in another country, they would probably do that as well.
Because I've heard a little bit watching some ISIS documentaries that, they sometimes use Western Europeans or Americans who defect to kind of make a statement that, look, this is a Western defector, they're our brothers too, etc.
Yeah.
Do you think that played any type of role?
Everything. All propaganda is pretty helpful for the cause, in various ways. Lukas could have been a pretty Some suspected that he was used as, his death was used as, see, we've got another Westerner that came to our cause, and now he's with Allah, blah blah blah. That could have a good effect on other converts or other converted kids that would want to go and do the right thing. Converted Muslims are actually pretty determined. They are the best Muslims if you're out there because they will go all the way. Mm-hmm. They will do everything by the book. 40% of the kids that have gone from the north to Syria and Iraq have, in fact, autism. That's a lot, 40%.
And is it that the hard boundaries or the dogma, so to say, the strict values, like eating this and not eating that? Is that seen as something that is appealing to children with autism, that it gives them some sort of structure that they don't maybe have otherwise?
It's the fact that they are doing it as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did. They are wanting to live a life how he did, walk the way he did, eat the way he did, dress the way he did, interpret the world the way he did. I found out after, through talking with another mother, that her son was sleeping on the floor a lot before he left. And then it dawned me that when he was with his father, his little brother told me once, this was a long time ago, that he was sleeping on the floor. And this was, half a year before he left. And this is a training thing, they're getting in the mood. They're connecting within themselves to what is going to come, eating with their fingers, as Muhammad, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that's what he did as well.
So there are some subtle signs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you're in this Facebook group where essentially you find out that your son has been wounded. And it occurs within this Facebook group?
No, the Facebook group showed me that he was dead. He was martyred.
So someone had told you he was wounded, gave you the link.
Yeah.
And then you go into the group where there's a profile.
He's a Salafist here in Copenhagen, one of the most visible Salafists. He goes online and tells Denmark, hell with democracy and stuff. He's not shy of making his point. And he is connected with Anjem Chowdhury from England, who helped them set up Sharia for Denmark.
And so, I mean, what then can you do? I mean, if it's apparently, I mean, or I would assume that Lukas was involved in these type of groups before, or at least while he was there, while he was on his phone during his time in Syria, that was taking place on a more or less public platform like Facebook, and they've been under a lot of controversy recently for this, which is why I'm asking, that you had no idea about, basically.
I think that when they are, in fact, in Syria and Iraq, they are not on these specific platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they might be on the platforms, but not on these specific groups. They have other secret groups. They have other ways to connect.
Mm-hmm.
They're not publicly saying, I'm in Syria and I'm going to do this and this.
Right. So it's the groups that are more of the outreach to others.
Yeah.
That gearing them up.
Potentially gearing them up. Yeah.
And this is a tough question, but in one of the other interviews that you had done that I had seen, you had mentioned that after having learned about Lukas's alleged death, you weren't allowed to close down his Facebook account.
Oh, no. You have to have a death certificate to close down Facebook. And as he's not officially dead, mind you, he is on every single list from the government, from the authorities around kids that have gone to Syria or Iraq, kids that have gone and died. But officially, I can't claim him dead. Not until 5 years passed. I was in court, in factually, to get a presumed death certificate with one of the recruiters sitting in court and hearing him say this and this and this. I have all the proof, my proof, that is screenshots of the talk with one of the Syrian fighters and this recruiter. But as the Syrian fighter is dead, he can't validate that, yes, this message is from me. So it's not admissible in court. You can't use it in court.
And so that account...
It still exists.
And is it active?
Yeah, sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Just as you said with the Viber chat.
Yeah. After he died, we found out that several pictures were uploaded on... a couple of pictures were uploaded on it, and it is active, and it still is active.
Yeah. And so, what has been the official response to, for example, this group? Has it been shut down? Has it?
No, they dissolved it and called it something else. A lot of members, they shifted to other secretive groups
because of this story.
Yeah. Because it was more known. I don't mind sharing names. This is from my life. I don't care. If they want to threaten me, they can just don't do it. What more can they do? They've already made sure that my son is dead. They have their, his blood on their hands. I don't care anymore. I did receive threats in the beginning, but I don't care anymore. There's nothing now. And I've called them out by their names. And we need this. We can't walk on eggshells. We cannot do that. And as long as we don't acknowledge that these recruiters still are walking our streets, we still can't put them behind bars. Listen, in Denmark, we have actually the first time, what's udvist in English?
Udvist.
Deported, yeah. A beggar. It's all on the news. We've got this beggar on the streets, a lady from, I think it's Romania. She has been deported now for begging. So we can do that, but we can't stop the recruiters from pushing our kids into a war that they cannot win. It's fucked up.
And there's, where we met was this civil society empowerment program that was essentially trying to educate NGOs and other frontline kind of responders to these radicalization events and how online communication and communication through social media, through YouTube, and we saw a lot of cool examples in that. Maybe I'll tweet them around on Twitter as well. What can that bring to the table? What can these obviously your son was in these Facebook groups, and so he was in touch with these technologies. He wasn't completely withdrawn. He might not work in a shop that sells alcohol, but he would still go and find like-minded supporters, recruiters, whatever, on Facebook or YouTube. So what can that online communication or using these platforms bring in order to de-radicalize or at least stop radicalized youth from going to Syria and Iraq?
This has huge potential in the meaning that they use them themselves. I am in another group called Mothers for Life. We sent a letter to our kids. And as soon as we went out with the letter, I set it up on Thunderclap as well. I did a huge Thunderclap.
What is Thunderclap?
Thunderclap is a platform as well where you can get your message within tweets, and you set a specific date on how long you want the thunder to roll.
Like a Hootsuite.
No, actually, you set up your message, the story. You have a message a box at the top. So when the 30 days, if you got it for 30 days, when the 30 days ends, and if you have pointed yourself, you're going to get 100 100 shares. If you get the 100 shares, it claps, and then the message goes out to whoever you pointed it to.
Mm-hmm.
I did another Thunderclap. Actually, after this letter was posted, I received a lot of response on Twitter from some Syrian fighters. I did a Thunderclap and a Twitter bomb with this letter, and I did a Thunderclap and a Twitter bomb with the real jihad. Jihad for me has always been holy war. Before I knew what jihad was, jihad is in fact something really beautiful that we don't know anything about. It is to behave. It is to be the best person that you can be. It is to contribute to your community. It is to help others when they're in need. It is to do the right thing, to be a better person. And I would like to put focus on these things that jihad as well means. There's a small jihad and the big jihad. The big jihad is to fight against your own ego. The small jihad, that's the sword jihad. That's to fight with holy war. The real jihad, I did a Thunderclap on as well, but that's probably a bit too big of a mouthful. People will not really share something that's saying the real jihad. I think I was supported with 6 people. But either way, it's seen. And I really think that we can get through some of these kids with videos from YouTube, from other platforms, because this is what they use themselves to get their propaganda through, to get their messages through. And if one little video clip or one little social media message gets some attention, that's pretty good. But it's something definitely that we should use more and more, because it is a big tool. I've been thinking, for a couple of years now about doing a nasheed. It's a song. It's something that the brotherhood helps each other with, the sisterhood as well. They sing it together. And this was going to be made from Muslim singers, but I was going to set it up with video that showed pictures of these kids. Our kids showed pictures of us as mothers, that it was, in fact, the mothers that were singing for their kids, that violent extremism isn't the way, that we should use our tongue instead.
And sort of coming to their side a bit with using the practices that they...
Yeah, and this is the whole thing that I work with. Use the Quran against these kids in the most respectful and the most loving way. Mm-hmm. Most of them haven't read the Quran. Their knowledge comes from their recruiters. They are told that the only way that you can read the Quran is to learn Arabic first. And a lot of kids don't have the patience to learn Arabic. They start it, but they don't go through it. So it's easier for them just to recite what they've been told. But this is the worst thing. By reciting one section and not seeing the next page that counteracts everything that has been said on that other page. That's not getting everything in context. These parents, and definitely the convert parents, need to be more aware of what they can do within their families. Peace and blessings lie upon the Prophet Muhammad, but paradise lies at the feet of your mother. That is pretty strong stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They have to seek permission to go to Syria and Iraq. There's this man talked to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. I want to go jihad. And then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, says, is your mother or father alive? And then he says, yeah. And then he says, then your jihad is with them.
Mm-hmm.
If I knew this, I could easily just say my son will be alive. But knowing my son and knowing how he works, this would have kicked in a whole different way. Because using the words of the Quran is so efficient. A quick story, he loves his cat. He really did. They had such a connection. It was mind-blowing. One day he came home and wouldn't have anything to do with Samson. And I was like, I think it's dogs you're thinking about. No, cats are dirty, blah, blah, blah. So I talked to this other mother that I knew, Muslim mother, and she told me a story about the Prophet and where Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, sat with a cat on his lap, and the cat was sleeping, and he wanted to go to prayer, but he cut his robe so the cat could still be lying on there. It was a beautiful story. Can't remember the whole thing, but I came back to Lukas and I told him the whole story. And, because I used the word Prophet Muhammad and peace and blessings be upon him, because I told him about this story, he just took the cat up right away, right then. I am an infidel. I am a non-believer. I have nothing to do with Islam, but I'm telling my son that is a converted Muslim something about something that I don't really know that much about. And he took it in. Mm-hmm. This is a good way to manipulate your kids.
Do you think that the story with the cat, do you think that was a means for the recruiter to try to create distance at the home by...
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Because he was so attached to his cat, that would be hard for him to let go.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right. So what's next for Sons and Daughters of the World? What are you working on at the moment? What's the future?
Well, actually, I've got a couple of projects working on. I'm going to do a film project. I've got a mother's project, something soothing for mothers to get them away, to do some mindfulness with them. Another mother's project is a mother's school, not for the parents that have lost their kids, but for NGOs and stuff to get, more aware on what's going on, to understand these kids through working with mothers. Mm-hmm. So get them schooled. Another project is with a jail. I want to go and visit all the jails in Denmark with a scholar, a Muslim scholar. So we have the theological way or the theological background with us. We've got the consequence of what goes wrong if you go to Syria. That's me. And I have a former terrorist. He's a terror accused, has been in prison. I'm not sure he will be allowed in jail, but I can use some video footage of him and use that on social media as well for a project to do a campaign.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, best of luck with it. Are you going to be putting in for the EU fund that they were talking about in order to combat de-radicalization?
No. I have been working with some other companies, Quilliam Foundation, Terra, from the Netherlands, and some other companies. We've applied for Erasmus funds on a school project for teachers. as well. So don't know if that's going to go through, but I've got my feet in a lot of different places. I do have my day job on the second hand as well. Yeah. So there's a lot to do.
Interesting. Well, appreciate the work, and I appreciate you coming in and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
I've just been speaking with Karolina Dom, founder of the NGO Sons and Daughters of the World, which is aimed at pressuring politicians and authorities to increase public awareness about de-radicalization programs. To find out more about the NGO, you can visit www.sonsanddaughtersoftheworld.com. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Social Media and Politics Podcast. Thanks to Copenhagen College Radio for the studio, Peter Orbeck for help with the tech setup, and to you guys for tuning in. Remember, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at SMNP Podcast, like our Facebook page, Social Media and Politics Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Becerra, signing off from Copenhagen. See you next time.